Vince Lombardi was born in Brooklyn, New York. He played football for St. Francis School and Fordham University. He coached football for St. Cecilia High School, Fordham University, the United States Military Academy, the New York Giants, the Green Bay Packers, and the Washington Redskins. He won 5 championships for the Packers. As I was saying, in 1970 he died in Washington, D.C. In 1971 he was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He is in the Packers Hall of Fame and the Redskins Ring of Fame. Vince went to Mass every day. Vince Lombardi said, "You don't necessarily have to like your players, but as a leader, you must love them." Lombardi graduated magna cum laude from Fordham in 1937 and taught high school for 12 years. In the NFL, he was a legendary motivator who focused on basics and preparation. He had an expanded idea of love. Love is loyalty, love is teamwork, love respects the dignity of the individual. This is the strength of any organization. He also said, individual commitment to a group effort makes a teamwork, a company work, a society work, a civilization work. From Vince Lombardi, we know this: every team member needs to be committed to the team. For many of the best coaches, the emphasis is on the team and its goals. Regardless of the huge talent and superstars that are in the market, the best teams play together as a unit. On January 22, 1972, my grandfather, George Hallis, spoke in Washington, D.C. Here's part of the speech that my father, Ed McCaskey, and I wrote for him. "Once I had a great friend who passed for too short a time on this earth, in this country, in this city. Once he said football symbolizes the attributes of America: stamina, courage, teamwork, self-denial, sportsmanship, selflessness, and respect for authority. My friend's name was Vince Lombardi." It's an honor to present Vince Lombardi for induction into the Sports Faith Hall of Fame. Here to accept is his grandson, John Lombardi.
You know, I know there's some folks here from Wisconsin who so I was going to say I was in enemy territory, but maybe not as much as before. I'm probably in more enemy territory now than if it were just my grandfather. As some of you may know, my younger brother just got hired by the Lions as their offensive coordinator. Tommy, I'd put in a good word for you, but I would hate to ruin that great relationship you have there with Mr. McCaskey. As we just heard, my grandfather went to church every day, and Bart Starr, who a lot of you probably know, used to say that if you'd seen Coach Lombardi during practice, you would know why he went to church every day. Another thing I'd like to point out, he was once given an award by a Catholic group in New York. They called him up and said, "You know, Coach, we've nominated you and honor you as Catholic of the Year." And his response was, "Well, where's that leave the Pope?" Which I'm happy to see that the Pope gets an award today, so he would have felt good about that. You know, you can talk a lot about faith, and you know, everyone has a different idea of faith, I'm sure, and what that means to them, whether it's religious faith or faith in others or faith in yourself. So I'm not going to go into that because I know we've got church to go to here soon. But I think what I'd like to talk to you about is a little bit about how my grandfather's faith kind of molded him to become the coach that he was. Again, as many of you know, he attended the seminary in high school. He went to a high school that was, I think, a 6-year program, and at the end you would enter the priesthood. He left, I think, after 4 years, primarily because the seminary did not have a football team. They actually frowned on football, and a little bit because he liked girls. He went to St. Francis Prep, which at the time was in Brooklyn. It's now in Staten Island. Played football for 1 year, went to Fordham, a Jesuit school, as you probably know. The one thing he learned there, as I've picked up over the years from people, is Jesuits had a very strong tradition in education. But education alone, improving yourself academically was meaningless if you did not train your will and form your character. Then he coached again taught in high school, and then went to West Point, where he coached for Red Blake, who was the head coach there. And I think the duty, honor, country that he got at West Point, you take that and couple that with what he learned in the Jesuits, really is what led him to be the coach that he was. The subjugation of self for the greater good, putting the individual below the team. He obviously went on to the Green Bay Packers, as you all know, 1 year with the Redskins. I think the thing that made my grandfather a great coach primarily boils down to two things. One, he was a master psychologist. He knew what made you tick. He had this innate ability, whether he learned it, he just had it when he was born, whatever it might be. He could determine what motivated you, what inspired you. Willie Wood, who many of you know, he said that the greatest thing Vince Lombardi did to him was leave him alone. That was good enough. Ray Nitschke from Chicago, he needed to have his butt chewed. He treated everyone fairly. He didn't treat them all the same. And then probably more importantly, I think the thing that my grandfather had is an incredible drive, an incredible will. And when he saw someone who had talent and that wasn't being realized, better watch out. He was going to get that every last ounce of talent out of you, no matter what it took. My grandmother has been quoted as saying to a player who was kind of down because he was getting chewed out pretty regularly, she said, listen, when he quits talking to you, that's when you know you're in trouble. Because right now he sees something in you, and he wants you to be more than you are. And so that would be, I guess, my lesson that I would try and leave with you. Self-awareness, trying to look inside yourself and say, are you getting enough out of what you have? Are you living up to your potential? That's what my grandfather was really all about. His famous quote, winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. He's not the first person to say that, actually. It was said by, actually, I think, a coach who went to Vanderbilt, Red Sanders, coached at UCLA. But of course, it's been attached to my grandfather. I think he regretted being associated with that quote, even though in professional football, as you all know, winning really is the only thing. But what he really meant is the will to win, the desire, the commitment, the dedication to do what it takes to be victorious is the most important thing. So I want to thank first Angela. She's put up with a lot. I was supposed to be here last year. My mother passed away. It's very nice for you to have me back. Thursday, my flight got canceled, so we had a bunch of wind in Nashville. So she's been very helpful. I appreciate it. The McCaskey family, thank you for having me. Sports Faith International, wonderful organization. Keep doing what you're doing. This is a valuable thing that you're doing, trying to bring faith to people through sports. And with that, I'll say good night.